Hello, welcome back to my channel and to today's video where I'll be sharing a little seasonal refresh that I did in our home just ahead of when the spring season officially begins. I started off in our bedroom where for the first time in months it was actually warm enough to open the windows and let some fresh air in whilst changing over our bedding. I raved about this brushed cotton bedding that I bought for autumn winter because it's been so cosy, but with the weather slowly starting to change, it was time for a lighter option. I also thought it was finally time to replace our mattress topper. Now, we've had this for about 8 or 9 years now, which isn't as gross as it sounds because it did go to the cleaners quite often, but we both felt like it was time to say goodbye and replace it. So after letting our mattress air out for a little bit, I got out the new mattress topper that we'd bought and laid that on top to also get some air and just properly fill out after having been rolled up. Once I was happy with how it was looking, I remade the bed with our white cotton bedding. I did, however, keep the electric blanket on the bed because a second winter here in the UK is quite common in early spring, so I wasn't quite ready to pack that away just yet. For anyone that's interested in our bedding, I've listed absolutely everything, including our mattress topper, which, by the way, after a couple of weeks' use, we're really enjoying now, down below in the description box. I changed the cushion covers out for something lighter. For those of you who watched the winter/Christmas home refresh video, you'll have seen that we had some dark green cushions over the winter season, so it just felt like they needed to be lighter for this season, along with a change back to our spring-summer throw blanket. I recently bought this little rustic bench from a small business, just to sit at the end of the bed. It has absolutely no functional purpose whatsoever, but I like it. And I will be doing a little bedroom sort of mini makeover later on in April or possibly early May, just changing a few things around, a couple of DIY projects, just to make it feel more finished and put together. Now, for anyone that watched my renovation regrets video from a few weeks back, you'll have heard me mention that this room, our ensuite, can look a little bit cold, but only on a cloudy day, and that's given the white tiles that we chose. One thing that I've done to warm up the space is added baskets and warmer tone furniture, but a few people had suggested adding a towel ladder. So we did. We bought this ladder, but because it's ash wood, it was quite pale in colour, so I gave it a little sand down and then used an oak wood stain to warm it up. These are only small details, but these baskets and wooden accents really do make a difference to the room as a whole. Out in the hallway and entrance area, we'd had this poor rubber plant sat here for a while, and it's simply not thriving. So we decided to relocate that to somewhere with more light, and instead I moved our large artificial olive tree here in a larger pot. I know not everyone's a fan of artificial trees, but sometimes an artificial tree just does the job when there's not enough light to sustain a real one. I filled the pot with some paper and then topped it with moss just to give it a more realistic look. I replaced the doormat by the front door just with something very similar to keep it light, and then I moved on to the console table. I'd already stripped it back a little bit after doing the utility refresh, which you'll have seen in last week's video, so I just carried on from there. First, removing the green winter blanket from the basket underneath and just starting from scratch on the top of the console itself. I replaced the lamp with this chunkier one that I bought recently, and whilst I'll be using a normal bulb in this lamp, I just wanted to share these handy rechargeable bulbs, which don't require a lamp or light fixture to be wired or plugged in. So they're really great for renters or awkward areas that don't have a plug socket or wiring. I always like to have a vase with some seasonal stems inside, and for spring this year I opted for some artificial laurel stems. Again, they're just very low maintenance and they always look fresh. I added a long dough bowl to bridge the gap between the lamp and the vase, and then added in a lighter blanket to drape over the basket underneath, just to break up all of that seagrass. For in the hallway, I'd bought a jute runner rug just to help the dogs in their older age. We have LVT flooring pretty much throughout the house, which is incredibly practical in terms of cleaning, but as the dogs are getting a little bit older, their legs are a little bit more wobbly, especially when they like to run along this section of the floor when the door goes. I thought that by adding a runner rug along this section it would provide a little bit more grip for them, so to make it slip proof for us I also added some non-slip rug underlay. Now I bought a larger one so that I could cut it down to size, and after a couple of weeks use this has made a really big difference for the dogs. And on a more personal note, I also really love natural textures like jute and baskets and wood, so this just adds a little bit of interest to an otherwise boring hallway. Moving on to the lounge now, and a cushion cover changeover on the sofa. Again, I just switched out the covers for something a little bit lighter. It's not a huge change at all, but it is something which is really easy to do each season and does make a difference to the room overall. I also like to switch up the shelves next to the fireplace with each seasonal change that I do, and I start by removing everything from each shelf so that I can just give them a clean first, and then assess all of the decor pieces that I have before re-merchandising them on the shelves. I like to use a mix of things that I've collected over the years, some slightly more antique and rustic pieces like this dough bowl and the jug, but then mixed with some newer items like books, prints, vases, candlesticks and other decor items. And then finally on the coffee table, I just kept it quite minimal and added this single vase. Onto the kitchen next, and I started with the different vases and stems that we had in here. I removed the large vase from the corner of our worktops entirely and gave that a quick clean before then replacing with a neutral lamp. We have plug sockets in this corner that I disguise with these oak chopping boards, so I could actually use a proper bulb in this lamp along with a Wi-Fi plug so that I could control it with my phone. I changed over the stems in the smaller vase from the floating shelf above the sink. As this area is tucked away from the light, I always opt for artificial stems, just for ease and low maintenance, and this season I'm adding in these artificial cowslip stems. Now I do sometimes cut my artificial stems down depending on the size of the vase, but this vase in particular is quite small, so instead I chose to bend the stems to shorten them so that if I ever chose to use them in a larger vase in the future, I still had the length. And the final vase to have a stem switch was the large one on the island. Then it was print switching time. This is another really easy and cost-effective way to change up the wall art with each season, or maybe just if you get bored. I decided to go back to the larger oak frame that I had in here prior to the Christmas refresh, and as usual I keep all of my seasonal prints inside the frame so that they stay flat. I flicked through all of the options, found our spring print, switched that over and then hung the frame back on the wall. And for anyone interested in where I buy my digital prints and also where I get them printed, I've added all of this information along with all of the links to anything in this video to the description box below. I also changed over the two smaller prints that we have on this dividing wall between our kitchen and TV lounge area. This year I added some new floral prints to my collection, so I added those to the frames and then rehung them. Next was the TV area, and usually I wash all of the covers on this sofa, but I actually did this about a month ago, so they were still pretty fresh and clean at this point, which made that one last task to do. But I did give it a quick hoover because that is always something that needs doing, having 4 dogs, and I changed over our cushion covers. Once more for some lighter options. I got some new tables for this area, so I switched out the coffee table first for its replacement and then added in the 2 new side tables. They're all made from reclaimed wood and have a very organic feel to them with lots of natural texture. I think they complement this space and just add some of the finishing touches that I've been looking for over the last couple of years. I styled our new coffee table using some of the more neutral coloured coffee table books that I've collected, and then I added a couple of smaller decor pieces, so this bowl for instance, and also this incense holder, just so that I have some varying heights. I thought it was time to change the artwork on the wall, so I replaced my DIY abstract canvas with this neutral canvas. We have floods of natural light in here thanks to the bifold doors, but I do think this change of canvas lightens up the space even more, and it suits the modern organic aesthetic, which I'm very drawn to. Since moving in and removing the old light fixtures, both in the kitchen and the TV area, we hadn't actually found any to replace them. However, we did recently buy some Rattan light shades and some bronze ceiling light fixtures. Both were quite inexpensive, and it's just nice to have something up there rather than the bare electric fittings that we've had for 4 years. Now, I've been wanting to try a ruggable rug for some time now because they seem like a really practical option given that we have 4 dogs. However, they're pretty pricey, especially for the area rug size that we would need to fill this TV area space. So, because I was a bit reluctant, I decided to buy one of the smaller ones instead, just to try out and trial as a doormat and see how good they actually are, before investing hundreds of pounds on a much larger one. And there we go, another spring home refresh is complete. With the brighter days, a bit of sunshine and the lighter additions to our home, I can definitely feel my mood lift as spring starts to creep in. I'd love to hear about any of your spring home traditions. Do you change anything around? Do you do a refresh or do you add decor for this season? Let me know down in the comments section below. But for now, that's it from me. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.